So this is Anacostia, historic African-American neighborhood. The lowest level of vaccination. They're sort of the disenfranchised group that we got to reach out to. So the mayor is now with me going to congratulate the people who are going to go out into the community to try and get people vaccinated.
Stay tuned for some priceless footage from Fauci's June 2021 vaccination campaign in Washington, D.C. But first, let's listen in to a few falsehoods that Fauci spreads on the campaign trail with residents of Washington, D.C. One lady says, "I heard that the vaccine doesn't cure COVID and it doesn't stop you from getting it." Let's have a listen and see how Fauci responds.
Well, I heard that it doesn't cure it and it doesn't stop you from getting it.
No.
So
on the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected. It's very, very good at protecting you.
Let me repeat what Fauci said. On the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you won't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you've been infected. Did the data available in June 2021 show that these vaccines would stop infections? No, because these vaccines were not tested for stopping infections, nor were the vaccines shown to prevent those who took them from getting sick with COVID. The most charitable interpretation of what Fauci said is that he made an extravagant extrapolation from short-term data on vaccines, but had no way of knowing if these patterns would hold up or be corroborated over time. It was irresponsible of Fauci and the CDC to assume that the vaccines would confer sterilizing immunity in the absence of compelling evidence. Next, a bit of free publicity for the vaccination campaign turns sour when a citizen with a bit of critical spirit calls Fauci out on camera. I don't necessarily endorse everything this gentleman says to Fauci. For example, COVID seemed to have some peculiarities that are not reducible to just another common flu. But there are some powerful truths in what this gentleman says nonetheless. Let's have a listen.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot on a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And it's
much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
Because
when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on.
There's something else.
You're right. But I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
I'd like to highlight a few powerful truths in what this gentleman says.
You all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
These vaccines were produced in record time and could only be issued under emergency use authorization. That's because they couldn't be fully tested in a larger population or fully tested for long-term adverse reactions. He's right. 9 months is not enough to gather and analyze comprehensive long-term safety data.
Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that.
When you pay people to take a medication that is perfectly safe and effective and is going to benefit their health, that seems rather strange on its face. Why would you need to pay someone to take a medication that is actually protecting them from disease? Surely paying people to take a vaccination, much like threatening them if they do not comply, is manipulating them into compliance. Why would this be necessary? Who stands to benefit from purchasing people's compliance? Surely this man is right to suspect that, quote, something else is going on if people are being paid off to receive a medical treatment.
Y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
The fear-mongering was pervasive throughout much of the pandemic. We were faced with a constant barrage of COVID death statistics morning, noon, and night, and reports on all the bad things that could happen to you if you caught COVID. This gentleman is absolutely right to say that the vaccination campaigns, as well as pandemic policy more generally, were designed to incite fear rather than inform and inspire rational behavior. There was no sense of proportion between the catastrophist messaging of public officials and the actual impact of COVID on the general population.